So welcome. Hope you've had a good evening. My name is Palmer Muntz. This session is how the Western Undergraduate Exchange makes going out of state affordable. So hopefully this will be worthwhile and practical. I am a regional admissions counselor with the University of Alaska Fairbanks. That means that when I say regional admissions counselor, I'm based in the state of Washington. Makes it a little bit easier to travel to visit high schools, meet with students, go to college fairs and so on, rather than flying back and forth to Fairbanks all the time. Let me just say that I hope that some of you tonight will consider the idea of going on a really big adventure and coming to the University of Alaska Fairbanks for college. When I get done with this presentation, I actually have a couple of extra slides about UAF. And so for those of you who'd want to stick around and learn a little bit, that would make my day. If you don't, that's okay. I won't cry too hard, okay? So the topic today is going out of state. And I'm assuming that because you're actually in this session, it's something that's on your mind, okay? But there's so many options. You look within the state of Washington, there's a lot of choices. Multiply that by 50, or more than 50 actually, and it can be a little bit overwhelming. So many choices out there for you, and you look at your college options. So I wanted to sort of start by laying a foundation of looking at how you can narrow the list, how you can find the colleges that are going to be the right choice for you and so on. And this might be something you've already covered elsewhere, but I just feel like it's a safe thing to spend some time on to start. And so you're juniors right now. You've got plenty of time. There's no pressure, no stress. A year from now, you're going to be feeling some of that pressure and stress. But right now, you can just relax and enjoy this process and begin to imagine, to formulate an idea in your mind of what you're looking for in a college. And often that'll start with, what you want to do, what you want to be when you grow up, what kind of career field, what kind of academic major you're interested in. When I first started at admissions many years ago, this was sort of the first thing that I would start with in talking with students. Well, what do you want to major in? And certainly it is important, but I've come to realize over the years that most students will actually change their major in college, often more than once. I believe the national average is 3 times. I changed my major 4 times because I'm above average, okay? So obviously, if you're interested in being an engineer someday, you need to look for schools that offer good engineering programs. But remember, there's a decent chance you may actually end up graduating in some other field. So look at engineering, but also look at the rest of the school and the rest of the academic options that they have. Over the years, I've come to emphasize, where do you want to live? What location is right for you? Just as much, if not more, than what do you want to do for an academic field? I often talk with 16 and 17-year-olds, and I ask them, have you ever moved in your life? Oh yeah, we moved. Did you ever have a say in where your family moved? Nope, they just packed up and we moved. This is maybe the first time in your life that you get to decide where you want to live. Do you want to go far away from home? Do you want to stay close to home? I went 10 minutes away to college, okay? I would never have done what I'm encouraging you to do in going far away, maybe even almost to the Arctic Circle for college. But everyone is an individual. Also, maybe you think there's certain parts of the country or certain types of weather or urban areas that you would like to experience. This is an opportunity for you to do that. What size school are you interested in? Do you want to go to a mega university, a small college, something in between? What fits you well? I went to a very small private liberal arts college, less than 1,000 students. One of my best friends from high school went to the State Research University. If we had swapped places, we both would have been miserable. So what's right for you? The culture of the place, student activities, clubs, different things to be involved with, look at the student life and what kind of experience do you want? Something people sometimes look at is it a suitcase college? What's a suitcase college? The kind of place where every Friday afternoon, everyone throws their suitcase in the car and goes home. Well, if you're someone who is from far away, you don't want to find yourself alone in the dorm every weekend. So those are the kinds of things maybe to pay a little attention to. And then, of course, cost, unless you're independently wealthy, cost comes into play. Even if you are independently wealthy, you want to pay attention and be a good steward of your finances, scholarships, and so on. And we're going to talk some more about that, of course, as part of this presentation. And as you form this list, think about what's negotiable and what's non-negotiable. For instance, again, if you want to be an engineer, a non-negotiable might be having an engineering major that's good, okay? But a negotiable might be, man, I really want to go to school in New York, but I'm willing to stay in Washington if that's what turns out to be better or what I need to do. That'd be a negotiable. And then at this stage of the game, really, you're window shopping for colleges. Okay, again, you're not under any pressure yet. Okay, a couple pieces of advice from a guy who's been around a little bit. You're getting a lot of emails. You're probably getting a lot of mail. You're maybe a little overwhelmed with it. Take time to open the mail. Take time to open your emails, okay? By the way, as you open those emails, there's almost always going to be an unsubscribe button at the bottom. If you think it's a school that you never want to hear from again, unsubscribe. It won't hurt anyone's feelings, okay? But open the mail. And by the way, I have a senior in high school myself. She does not follow this advice at all, but anyway. But as you scroll through the emails, you may discover there's a feature of that particular school that is appealing to you. And that may make you interested in that school, or it may simply mean that's something I'm going to look for in another college, okay? College fairs are a great way to window shop. And for those of you who've never been to a college fair, let me try and paint a picture for you a little bit. Typically, it'll be held in a gymnasium or an exhibit hall. You'll walk in and there will be rows of tables with people like me there, and we have our propaganda laid out on the tables, and you can just walk around and pick up literature, ask questions, you can request more information. Awesome opportunity to just get a quick glance at a lot of different options. And I wanted to mention to you all that there's a pretty good sized college fair coming up in Seattle in April. On Saturday, April 22nd at Seattle University in their Red Hawk Center from 9 to noon. Again, on Saturday, April 22nd, there'll be a college fair. I'm going to guess there will be about 150 different universities and colleges there that you can wander through and ask questions. And then, of course, on a daily basis at your fingertips, you have the internet. And so you can do a lot of great research there. That might mean going to different colleges' websites. You can do things like virtual campus tours and so on. But there are also third-party websites where you can search to find different colleges. You can compare colleges side by side. But the internet is a fantastic way to window shop. And lastly, I'll just say, don't overlook the opportunity to visit campuses. Okay. Most of us welcome campus visitors, and we'll be glad to have you spend a half a day or a day, and we can show you around, maybe arrange for you to meet with faculty members, to talk with students, talk to a financial aid person if you want, and get a sense of, do I feel at home here? And if you visit a campus and you hate it, it was still a good visit, because now you know a little better what you don't want. Something you might want to consider is this summer and family vacation. Maybe make your family vacation one where you can visit several college campuses just to sample them along the way. Again, I think most of you came to this session because you're already interested in the idea of leaving Washington, but I wanted to spend some time talking about the advantages maybe of going out of state. One thing is that you may find that certain academic programs are less impacted in other parts of the country, okay? And by impacted, what I really mean is the programs are not as hard to get into. And I'll give you one example. I don't know if this is still true, but about 15 years ago, when I was working in admissions in central Illinois, one of the things that caught me by surprise was that there were several nursing programs in our area that were not hard to get into and weren't particularly expensive. And coming from the West Coast, I was used to it being super hard to get into a nursing program. Some students would have to wait a couple of years for a spot to open up in their local college. So you may find that some majors in other parts of the country aren't as impacted. Furthermore, you may find that there are programs available elsewhere that you can't even find in the state of Washington. Just using University of Alaska Fairbanks as an example, for instance, we have majors in geological engineering and mining engineering because it's freaking Alaska, and those are things that we pay attention to there. I don't know that those are majors you would find in Washington. Or for instance, we have majors in Alaska Native Studies and Alaska Native Languages. Obviously, you would need to go out of state to find things like that, okay? Internships in certain fields might be more readily available when you go to school in that area. So you may find that universities have built close relationships with industries in their area. And so if you're interested in that type of industry, you may want to go to college in that area so that you have access to more internship opportunities. As I kind of touched on already, you just want to experience a different part of the United States, something other than the Seattle area. You've always wanted to go to New Orleans or New York City or whatever. This is an opportunity for you to go and experience cultures and meet people in different parts of the United States. Something that, you know, is an important thing to realize is that as you go away, far away from home, you're going to need to be a little more independent. You'll probably find that you mature a little more quickly than someone who stays close to home, like I did when I went to college. And so that can be a valuable part of the experience of going out of state for college. And then sometimes colleges out of state are actually more affordable. We'll talk about that in a second, of course. Then we talk about some of the building blocks, paying for college. You may know some of this, but just real briefly, of course, after October 1st of your senior year, make sure you do your free application for federal student aid, your FAFSA, and do it every year that you're in college. And remember, you can list up to 10 different colleges or universities on the FAFSA. You don't have to know where you're going when you do the FAFSA. And your information can be sent to all these schools so that as you apply for admission, they can make offers of financial aid to you. Also look, of course, for institution-specific scholarships. The number one source of scholarships is the colleges themselves. They're often the most generous resources for scholarships. Look for scholarships in your local area, okay? Your high school probably has some lists of those that you can apply for with local businesses and organizations. And lastly, obviously, please don't let the price tag of a school stop you at this early stage. You won't know in most cases what a college is going to cost you until you've already applied for admission and applied for financial aid, and then you get an offer of financial aid. And even then it can be confusing, but at least you've got information to go off of. I wanted to back up for one. I realized I might have missed one comment I wanted to make. Oh, a comment I want to make about affordability. It wasn't just that some schools may or may not cost less. It was this final bullet point, different parts of the country cost less. You know that the Puget Sound area is pretty expensive. And so you may find that colleges in certain parts of the country have a lower cost of living. And so your rent and so on may be less expensive than someplace close to home that can make it more affordable. Sorry, as I was talking, I realized, oh, I skipped that point completely, really. So, hey, you might remember an old TV show, Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? This is a question that ought to appear on Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? Let's go through this real briefly. You usually must pay out-of-state tuition when you are attending any college outside your home state. B, when you attend any public college outside your home state, or C, when you attend a college in the District of Columbia or Puerto Rico, because of course, they're not even states, right? So I'm not going to make you actually answer that question. I'll just give you the answer in case you didn't know, and that is you usually must pay out-of-state tuition when you attend any public university or college outside of Washington. As a Washington resident, you are a taxpayer, and some of your taxes go to underwrite the costs of the universities and the community colleges in the state. When you go out of state, you're not a taxpayer there, and so you pay a much higher tuition, okay? And so one of the things we're going to talk about is how to mitigate that. Does it always cost more to attend college out of state? No, okay? Western Undergraduate Exchange is a tool we're going to talk about specifically tonight, but also some universities will have special scholarships just for Washington residents or other non-residents. Many have academic scholarships, merit-based scholarships that can bring the cost down, or need-based scholarships and grants. And again, I just talked a minute ago about how the cost of living can vary. So it is not always more expensive to go out of state. And having said all that, let's talk about the Western Undergraduate Exchange, which we all just call WUE because Western Undergraduate Exchange is a mouthful, way too many syllables. So what is WUE? This is a program that is managed by the Western Interstate Commission of Higher Education. Yeah, that's even more of a mouthful. WICHE, we call it, okay? And about 160 different public universities and colleges in the Western United States participate in WUE. I mentioned before that out-of-state tuition is usually quite a bit higher than in-state tuition. If you go to a school that has WUE and they give you WUE, it's an important catch here, you won't pay out-of-state tuition. Instead, you'll pay just a little bit more than in-state tuition. Usually the formula is the cost is 150% of what residents in that state pay for college. And this makes a big difference. This is just some examples here to show you, but as a general rule, if you go to a school and are awarded WUE, you'll save $10,000 to $15,000 a year compared with what it would cost you to go there as a non-resident student paying out-of-state tuition. University of Utah here on this slide, you can see they estimate the savings is actually as much as $16,000 a year. So a big deal. So who is a part of WUE? These are the states that participate in the WUE program. Basically everything from the Dakotas on west, plus Alaska and Hawaii, of course. But not every public university or college in these states participates in WUE. You have to find which ones they are. So let me give you a tool for that. There's a website, www.wiche.edu.wue, wiche.edu.wue. And if you go to this website, scroll down just a little ways, and you'll see some good general information about the Western Undergraduate Exchange Program. But then real quickly, look to the left side, and I highlighted it here. There's a tool called the WUE Savings Finder. Go ahead and click on that, and it'll take you to what is basically a WUE search engine, okay? And here you can, for instance, type in the name of states that you're interested in. So you might say, I've always wanted to live in Hawaii. Cool. Put Hawaii in, and it'll tell you which universities in Hawaii participate in WUE, or maybe Montana, or North Dakota, whatever it might be, okay? And so this is a way to identify what those 160 WUE participating institutions are. I circled on here that one of the words program/major, okay? One of the tools you see here is you can search for certain academic programs, and that can be really helpful, right? I want to wave a little red flag at you, just a little caution, and say, this is great, try it, but it's not an infallible tool for a couple of reasons. One thing is some schools will add or drop majors, and that information may not get updated in the WUE website right away. Secondly, sometimes you'll search for a major and you'll have a certain name for it in mind, but the university calls it something else, okay? And so you'll search on that word, but you won't find it because the university uses a different name, okay? So having said that, real important advice to you is, as you identify schools that have WUE, go look at their own websites and check out their WUE policy, check out their majors right there. That will give you, it's never perfect, right? But it'll give you the most reliable and most up-to-date information that you're going to find. Okay. And one of the things that I found a shortcut is just simply put in the name of the university into the Google search bar and then just add WUE afterwards. And often the first, at least the first non-advertisement response that'll come up is a link to that university's WUE information and policy. Some other information to give you. Number one, I hate to break your heart on this, but there is no common application for WUE. There's no one form that you fill out and you find out if you get WUE. WUE is awarded directly by each individual university, and every school has its own policies and rules for how it awards WUE. Okay, that can be a little bit frustrating. It can, it takes a little effort on your part, but it's okay. The main thing is you just need to know what are the policies at the schools you're considering, and some things to be aware of. Some schools will have early deadlines. If you don't apply by a certain date, you won't be considered. A few have first come, first served programs. So they have a certain block, a certain number of WUE awards that they've budgeted for. And when those have all been given out, there's no more available. Some universities will have a separate WUE application you need to complete. So you'll apply for admission, but you'll also do a WUE application. Others don't have that step. Many schools will have a minimum GPA or a test score. Some schools, as you'll see, actually treat this basically like an academic scholarship. Very importantly, some schools will only offer WUE for certain majors, or they'll exclude certain majors from WUE. And so pay attention to that. One example for me is that I'm interested for my daughter in a major in medical lab sciences. One of the schools I identified for her, that's a program they exclude from WUE. Check on whether each university will allow you to stack scholarships with WUE. Some schools look at WUE and say, this is basically the best scholarship we give. If we give you WUE, you just be content with that. We're not going to give you anything else. Perfectly legit, right? But some schools will let you receive WUE, and in addition to that, get an academic scholarship or get other types of scholarships from that university. So just find out what the rules are. I would also say, if there's a school that interests you and they don't have WUE, or you're not eligible for it, don't necessarily just cross them off your list. They may have other types of scholarships that are almost as good. And so you'll be like disappointed, oh, I didn't get WUE, but oh, this other scholarship is only $2,000 different a year. It's worth it to me. And then a final caveat just to be aware of. When a school offers you WUE and you accept it, one of the things that you agree to is you're basically going to say, thank you for WUE. This is wonderful. And in exchange for this, I am not going to try to become a resident of your state in order to get lower tuition. Okay. And as a general rule, that's perfectly fine. WUE is wonderful. It's a great deal. You're getting it for your entire time at the college. And it's great. There are some rare instances where you may want to preserve your right to seek in-state tuition, to seek resident status. For instance, we have one program at UAF. It's a pre-vet program, and WUE works for it. It's not a problem. But if you want to continue on into the vet program, there's some big advantages to being an Alaska resident. So you may want to say, I'm going to skip WUE and I'm going to work towards becoming an Alaska resident so that when I'm getting into the vet med part of that, I have the advantages. So let me give you some examples of different requirements. As I mentioned before, some treat it like an academic scholarship. So Boise State University, they're looking for a 3.9 GPA in order to consider you for WUE. You have to also be accepted for admission by December 15th. Okay, so a pretty early deadline there. Montana State University, they have a January 3rd deadline currently. It may change from year to year. You have to do a separate WUE application, and there's a WUE, and there's an essay as part of that. They say you need a 3.3 GPA, but if you read the information on their website or talk with them, what you'll find is WUE is very competitive, and actually most recipients have about a 3.8 GPA. Okay. University of Wyoming is a little bit of an outlier in that they will look at both your GPA and your SAT or ACT results. Okay, and so they have a matrix that you look at, and if you have a certain GPA, you have to have a certain SAT or ACT score in order to be awarded WUE. And then I'll just end with University of Alaska Fairbanks. We're the best. We're the nicest. We give WUE to literally every student from Washington, and you don't have to do a separate application. When you apply on the application, we say, do you want WUE? And you can mark yes, and we will give you WUE. Some other factors I mentioned that sometimes not all majors are eligible. So at Boise State, most programs are eligible, but not radiologic science. Oregon Tech, also, again, most programs, but not some of the allied health majors. University of Arizona is always a fun example we bring up because they only offer WUE in 2 majors. All the other majors are ineligible. But then just to make you feel better, Northern Arizona, UAF, we offer WUE to students in any major. So I saw a question here asking, would you be able to drop WUE if you later found out it would be more beneficial to seek state residency? That's a question you'll need to ask each individual university and find out their policy. Okay, sorry. So just to wrap up real briefly, please take advantage of the opportunity to work with admissions counselors like me. We get paid to help you. We can be your liaison. We can be your advocate. We typically like our jobs, so we want to work with you. Take time to check out schools you've never heard of, okay? When someone reaches out to you, go ahead and look at their information. When you go to a college fair, pick up some literature from places you haven't considered before. There might be some pleasant surprises. And then also, as you talk with colleges, ask the questions that matter to you. If you're going to a college fair with your best friend, she might be looking at different athletic programs, but you're interested in music. Ask different questions. So as I wrap up here, if you want to, you can continue to put questions into the chat and I'll try and help you with those. The people who organized this evening asked that you fill out a feedback form so they know how things went. I just put a link to this form into the chat. So if you would click on that and then afterwards go ahead and fill that out, that'd be awesome. Again, my name is Palmer Muntz. I'm with the University of Alaska Fairbanks. Here's my contact information. And for those of you who want to, I'll take like 180 seconds right now and tell you a little bit about UAF. If you click off, I'll never know the difference. It won't hurt my feelings, but let me tell you a little bit about University of Alaska Fairbanks and the adventure that we might be able to offer you. Because I promise you, if you go to UAF, you'll get to see and do and experience things that you won't do anywhere else, including possibly joining the 40 Below Club. First time each year gets to 40 below zero. You can go take your picture with the temperature sign on campus with your friends in your swimsuit. So little tradition there. We're the flagship university for the state of Alaska, just like UW is for Washington. We're a national research university, but we're different than a lot of schools that have those labels. Starting with this fact, we only have about 7,000 students. I think we're the smallest or second smallest flagship university in the country. So I like to tell students, you've got all the resources of a large research university, but in a very personal environment. Our student to faculty ratio is 10-1. First time I saw that, I thought it was a typo. I was like, of course, 20-1, right? 2/3 of our classes have less than 20 students in them. So very personal, easy to get help and get in relationship with your faculty. We've got about 120 different majors. Most of my students from Washington who come up are usually looking at the sciences, often things like wildlife biology or fisheries or ocean sciences or geosciences, engineering, of course. But we're a weird school in that we actually have a community college within the university. So we literally have everything from a one-year program in diesel mechanics and one of the country's top fire science programs for firefighters, all the way through a PhD in space physics. So we've got that whole range. And then with regard to WUE, again, we offer WUE to every student from Washington. WUE with tuition, fees, room and board adds up to right now between $24,000 and $25,000 a year. And we do allow stacking scholarships. So for instance, you can add an academic scholarship onto this. Just an example, a 3.8 high school cumulative GPA will get you an $8,000 scholarship off of that. So if there's anything that I could do to help you in looking at college or WUE in general, or of course, looking at University of Alaska Fairbanks, I would love to have you reach out to me. So if you have any questions, again, put them into the chat. I'll be glad to stick around for a minute, but I'm going to stop the recording and end this. Otherwise, thanks so much for being here this evening. I appreciate it.